Folks, tomorrow all across the country, protests will take place in cities nationwide. It is being called a National Day of Resistance. Washington, D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles, New York. It's all tied to the Hands Up, Don't Shoot, Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe movement that's taking place, all tied to the deaths of Eric Garner, Mike Brown, and so many others. One of my guests on the show today, Colette Flanagan, she knows what that feels like. She knows the feeling of other moms as well. Her son, Clinton Allen, was killed by Dallas police last year, and she is here in the nation's capital advocating for changes. She's the founder of Mothers Against Police Brutality. She joins us right here as well on News One Now, and we also, of course, have on our panel here Jason Johnson, Law Victoria Burke, and also Ray Baker. And so I want to go right to you. You join these other mothers coming to D.C. to raise this issue. When you see these protests taking place around the country, surely that must make you feel good to see folks stepping up and saying that the lives of African Americans who've been killed at the hands of police, they actually matter. Absolutely.
It's no longer conjecture. We've been saying for years that there are policemen, and open records show us that in Dallas, for instance, all of the black unarmed young men that have been killed, which is over 80, 74% of those killings are done by white officers. So a lot of people are offended when we say Black Lives Matter, but there is certainly a disparity of our children being murdered by police officers, and we cannot dismiss that.
What happened in the case of your son?
In the case of my son, the officer, and I'm encouraging mothers to start calling their names. We are part of the protection we've been taught. You know, we say officer or the cop, but his name is Officer Clark Stoller, Dallas policeman that killed my son. He had an excessive trouble history with the Dallas Police Department, 8 excessive other forces, 1 attempted murder. He used his squad car to almost kill someone, and then he falsified that police record to cover that. But he was able to thrive in a culture that protects him from the DAs, the grand juries, to the chief of police, to the police unions. So had he been fired, terminated, my son, Clinton Allen, would be alive.
After your son was killed, was this officer, you said it was Clark?
Clark Stoller.
Clark Stoller. Was he indicted?
No, he wasn't. And here's the thing. We live in a city, we have a black district attorney who is well known for exonerations, Craig Watkins.
Right.
We have a black police chief, we have black senators, we're just chocolate all over. But the thing that we must remember is that it doesn't matter what the color is. If you are not indicting police officers that kill our children, we're going to remove you. And we know that district attorneys' relationships are just too close to policemen. They depend on those same policemen to investigate other cases that they have. And then the police unions are just absolutely, they have too much power. The police unions are the ones that's pushing out the training, and they push back when they don't want certain training. And so that culture of, hey, do what you want to do out there, we're the union, we've got your back. Well, then we should start tying some of that union money into compensation for these parents that are losing their children.
I want to bring up panel right now, the fact that, I mean, obviously, mothers speaking out, losing their sons, but also this movement is being crystallized. You see the very clear demands that are coming out. It is not simply a matter of folks hitting the streets or going into department stores and having die-ins. I mean, it really is moving towards how do you make fundamental changes. Lauren, there was some action this week on Capitol Hill. That's a direct result of these protests.
Right. It was the Death in Custody Act, which was sponsored by Bobby Scott and became law. It had already passed in the House. It passed in the Senate. Thanks to Rand Paul and party, flipped some Republican senators. So the president's going to sign that in law because we don't have any stats. We don't have any good stats on who actually dies in custody. And
so now
it's not just custody, it's during arrest.
So now with this bill, it will actually do what?
Well, the Attorney General is actually mandated to study the stats and find and figure out ways to change the pattern that he sees in the stats. So it mandates that the Attorney General not only collects the stats from police departments, state and federal, across the country, but that they make a change. That's really the big part of the bill, to me, the important part of the bill. But anyway, it mandates that all police departments have to report to the Department of Justice their stats of death in custody and how people died, details, etc.
Jason, we're seeing, again, other issues come out where folks are being very clear when it comes to special prosecutors,
right.
When it comes to training, when it comes to body cameras as well.
Yeah, and I think this is a good thing. And ultimately, what we're seeing in LA, in DC, and Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, and St. Louis, this is the difference between grassroots and AstroTurf. These aren't all coming under sort of national movements. These are local people who are saying, this is happening here too. We need to do something about this here too. And I'm glad your guest mentioned this, because this is also key. It's not just about bad individual cops. It's about the government backing up the bad behavior of cops. It's about Leon Ford Jr. in Pittsburgh, who got shot 5 times by the police, and they sued him. That's the kind of thing that we're sort of battling here city by city, and that's what I'm glad to see happening.
One of the things I think is exciting about this, Roland, is just what Dr. Johnson alluded to, which is this idea that it's grassroots, and beyond it being grassroots, it's multi-layered. So you have some folks who are working to change things on the legislative side. We see what Bobby Scott has done in Congress. We have others who are trying to change the humanity conversation about making sure that black lives are important. We have others who are talking about the dialogue as the police. We have black law enforcement organizations saying, we don't support what St. Louis said to the police brand players there. We're going to try to change things internally. So it's a multi-pronged and multi-layered attack that is what we've often been saying is most effective in trying to achieve the
and we see what happens last night. You see what happens when moneyed interest in this town get their way. Wall Street. So we know what works in politics. It is money and it's pressure. And just like you said, it's not about whose skin color is involved. You have to put pressure on specific people to do things. In fact, I think that the march should be focused on the governor of New York, because he can appoint a special prosecutor in the Eric Garner case. So we have to be very specific about what actions we've taken against whom, and money has to be connected. And that's why the police unions win, because they have the money.
In all police shootings, there should be a special prosecutor. And not only that, we are trying to implement a Clinton-Allen law, which says that when there is an officer-involved shooting, whether it's fatal or not, we want your blood. Within the hour. We need to blood test. The plane that I'm going to be getting on in 30 minutes or 45 minutes from now, I bet you that pilot has been blood tested. Are we putting our children on school buses that they're driving without being blood tested? Why are these cops above the law? They should be blood tested for drugs, because some of them have issues and problems, and they should be on medication and not on the streets with our children with a gun.
All right, well, Colette, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much for being with us.